What's poppin', guys? Welcome back to Sam Talk Sports. Let's talk about that Steelers versus Chiefs AFC wildcard game. The Chiefs, like I expected, cruised to a victory over the Steelers. But let's talk about the Steelers, their future now that Big Ben has retired. And before I dive a bit deeper into this video, I want to give a huge shout out to Big Ben, man. I mean, he's been with the Steelers for 18 years, 17 or 18 years, one of those two. And they never had a losing season with Big Ben as a quarterback. So huge props to the Steelers. And even though Big Ben is retiring, I feel like the Steelers is a staple in the sense that they'll always be good. They have a solid foundation. But let's break down this big game a little bit on the Steelers' perspective. I thought Big Ben had a decent game, obviously, towards the latter half of the game. Third quarter, fourth quarter, Big Ben was able to make his stats seem a little bit better because the Steelers were trailing. But it was a good way to end his career. I feel like 2 touchdowns, 215 yards. Not much to complain about considering the Steelers were major underdogs in this game. But for the Steelers, one aspect I really feel like they need to improve on is their rushing. I like how Pittsburgh does emphasize the run, but like I mentioned before, Najee Harris this year, 38th in the league in average yards per game at 3.9. That's not good enough. And don't get me wrong, I think Najee Harris is a great running back, and he will be the running back most likely in the future of the Steelers for at least a couple seasons, at least 3 seasons in my opinion. And 1,200 yards, that's 4th in the league, attempts 2nd in the league. So it's clear that the Steelers and Harris are feeling it. They want to run the ball, yet the average yards per attempt is not that great. And because Harris is a rookie this season, I feel like he'll definitely watch film and improve on this in future seasons. And so overall in this game, you can see how in 20 carries they only got 56 yards. That's an average of 2.8 yards per attempt, which was a big reason why they lost. But like I mentioned before, I think the running game of the Steelers will improve, Najee Harris will improve. And moving on, I also feel like for the Steelers, they have a solid receiving team. Lots of great players on the list here, and most likely they'll return next season. Johnson, Claypool, even Harris had a great season catching the ball. Washington, Ray McLeod, Smith-Schuster was injured, but he's a solid receiver. And also for the tight end position, Freiermuth, if that's how you pronounce his name. So I think the Steelers have plenty of options at the receiver position, but like I mentioned before, Big Ben is retiring, so they need a new quarterback. And in the NFL, you really need a quality quarterback to be competitive, to have a chance at making the playoffs and advancing through each round of the playoffs and eventually hope for that Super Bowl win. Big Ben has been with the Steelers for 17, 18 years. So this is going to be quite a drastic change for the Steelers, and this offseason, they really need to emphasize on finding a solid quarterback, a quality quarterback, but this is easier said than done. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers seasons, they have essentially been competitive since the early 2000s. A couple years they missed the playoffs, but they won the Super Bowl in 2008, and they lost the Super Bowl in 2010. And then every year they kind of returned to playoffs or were at least an over 500 team. But recently, you could see in the past 5 years, missed the playoffs twice, and then they lost the first game of the playoffs 3 times. So I don't think Mike Tomlin is the problem. If anybody raises that question, like, is Tomlin the right head coach for the Steelers? My answer is yes. I mean, he has not had a losing season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I feel like he is able to manage the team really well in the sense that no matter who comes and goes, any roster switches, that doesn't matter. Tomlin has a solid foundation for this team, and I do see them being competitive next year, definitely over 500 again. But like I mentioned before in this article, Mike Tomlin says all options on table this offseason to find next Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. This is going to be an eventful offseason for the Steelers. I am very excited to see what happens, who the Steelers are going to pick to play at the quarterback position. I personally don't think that they should draft a quarterback because I feel like it's too late now. I feel like if they wanted to draft a quarterback, even though they kept on making playoffs, so most likely the draft order would be the 16th pick or later on. So it's going to be hard for them to find a franchise quarterback that late in the draft. But I felt like they kind of should have developed a quarterback, kind of like a Jordan Love situation in the Packers case, where they kind of were like, okay, we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to stay with this team for much longer, so they wanted to develop a young quarterback and, watch and learn how Aaron Rodgers goes about his day, just like Brett Favre back in the day. But I felt like the Steelers didn't really, think this one through. They didn't really find a young quarterback with enough potential to lead the team. And that's why they're in a precarious position right now. Not a horrible position, because I think if you look at the rest of the roster, they're good. They just really need a quarterback that is experienced and can play well and can mesh with the team right away. Kind of like Phillip Rivers' situation where he joined the Colts and then they made the playoffs, So an experienced veteran quarterback would be ideal. But quarterbacks that are top-notch, they're hard to find in this league. But I feel like the Steelers is a popular destination, and like you can see here, Big Ben, since 2004, he has been the quarterback for the Steelers, and he has definitely had many seasons. He kind of aged like fine wine towards the latter end of his career. He's had some great statistical seasons. But besides Big Ben, the only other quarterback that the Steelers have on the roster right now is Mason Rudolph. And to be blunt, I don't see Mason Rudolph taking over and being the quarterback for the Steelers, the starting quarterback for the Steelers next season. I think he's a solid backup quarterback, but nothing more. And I don't think he can lead the Steelers to the promised land. My throat's dry, give me a sec. So I just kind of want to end off this video of the Steelers by emphasizing that the Steelers fans, don't panic. I trust your front office, and I think y'all will find a great quarterback this offseason. And if they do that, you guys will be fine. You guys will return to the playoffs. Why? I just want to list 2 examples. First off, we could see Drew Brees' retirement. The 4 seasons before he retired, the Saints won double-digit games. They're first in the South. They made the playoffs each and every single year. And they probably should have been the Super Bowl in 2018, if not of that blown call in the Rams game. But once Drew Brees, who I consider to be a quality, top-notch quarterback, retired, Jameis Winston, he actually had a solid year this year before he got injured. And, after that, the Saints kind of struggled. Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, not enough of talent at the quarterback position to allow the Saints to reach the playoffs. Had they had Drew Brees this year, I think they'd make the playoffs easy. And also, if you look at the Colts, Andrew Luck, 2018, top-notch quarterback, they made the playoffs. He retired 2019. I think they had Jacoby Brissett as their starting quarterback. They missed the playoffs. 2020, they made the playoffs. With who? A complete new quarterback, Phillip Rivers. They made the playoffs 11-5. And this year, Phillip Rivers retired. Carson Wentz obviously isn't at that top-notch quarterback level. And guess what? The Colts, with a phenomenal roster, the most Pro Bowl selections, did not make the playoffs. So the quarterback position is foundational for each and every single NFL team, especially for those that are on the cusp of contention for a Super Bowl, which I believe the Steelers will be next season. So, guys, find a good, solid freaking quarterback, and I'll see you Steelers fans back in the postseason next year. Alright, that's the end of this breakdown. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to live a spicy life. Peace.